There is a machine sitting on a concrete pad outside a house in Texas that makes 264 gallons of drinking water a day out of nothing but the air around it. It is not connected to a well, a water main, or a delivery truck. And the source it draws from cannot be drained either, because the water held in the atmosphere is completely replaced every 8 or 9 days. People have been trying to build this machine for more than a century, and until last year, nobody had designed one with the sole purpose of running an American house. So, what changed? What does it actually cost to run? And is this the future of water independence, or just marketing hype? Let's find out. The idea of capturing water from the air isn't a new one. Fog nets strung across hillsides in Chile and Peru still pull drinking water out of coastal mist for villages that get almost no rain, and farmers have been harvesting dew off stone and leaf for as long as there have been farmers in dry places. But the idea of engineering machines to do this starts with one man and one very wrong conclusion. In 1900, a Russian forester named Friedrich Siebold was clearing woodland above the Crimean coast when he came across 13 conical piles of stone. Each one stood about 33 feet high and covered close to a quarter of an acre. Downhill from them, he found broken clay pipes running toward the wells and fountains of the ancient city of Theodosia. Siebold worked out what he thought had happened. The Greeks had built dew condensers, huge loose stacks of stone that cooled overnight, pulled moisture out of the morning air, and fed a city through pipes. By his arithmetic, each pile had been delivering more than 14,000 gallons a day. So in 1912, he built one himself, on a hilltop 900 feet above the sea. A concrete bowl 66 feet across, filled with sea pebbles stacked 20 feet high in a truncated cone, shaped so air could move through the pile instead of around it. And it worked, or at least partially. On its best day, it produced about 95 gallons. But set that against the 14,000 he had predicted. The low yields were well below the target. Not only that, but the base cracked, the bowl leaked, and by 1915 the experiment was finished. Later researchers went back to Siebold's mounds and found they were burial mounds, part of the necropolis of ancient Theodosia. The pipes were medieval and had nothing to do with them. Yet, Siebold's idea had caught the attention of other inventors, and a few decades later, a Belgian inventor named Achille Knoppen went even bigger. Between 1930 and 1931, he raised a masonry tower 46 feet tall in Trans-en-Provence, in southern France, with walls 10 feet thick to hold the night chill and vent holes to let the warm day air in. It's an impressive structure that still stands, yet it could only produce a few quarts a day, and it has now become a symbol of the most famous failure in the field. The fundamental problem that plagued both of these creations is that a pile of rock can only get as cold as the night gets. If the night never drops below the dew point, no water forms, no matter how much stone you stack. Every passive collector ever built ran into that same issue. So, the answer was to stop waiting for a cold night and manufacture one. That is the entire conceptual leap, and it is why the modern machine has a compressor in it. You see, air always carries some water as invisible vapor, and there is a temperature at which that vapor has to become liquid. That temperature is the dew point. Chill any surface below it and water appears on the surface, which is why a cold glass sweats on a summer porch and why your air conditioner drips onto the driveway. An atmospheric water generator does that on purpose. Countertop versions that can produce 2 to 15 gallons a day have been sold for years, and container-sized commercial systems have supplied villages and construction sites for much longer than that. But what was missing was the middle. Nothing existed that made household volumes and plumbed into a house like a water heater, which is the gap Aquaria is looking to fill. The company was founded in 2021 by two brothers, Brian and Eric Sheng, and now runs out of Texas. Brian Sheng did his thesis research at Princeton on atmospheric water infrastructure. In November of 2024, it announced it had raised $112 million, and Time named its technology one of the best inventions of that year. It has also announced a project to supply a community of 1,000 homes in Hawaii built with solar and batteries and supplied entirely by water pulled from the air. All their machines run through 6 stages. Air comes in through filtration that strips dust and pollen before condensation begins, so the water never meets the particulate in the first place. That cleaned air crosses a refrigeration coil held below the dew point, and moisture falls out of it as liquid. The water drips into a sealed internal reservoir, so it never sits open to the room. It passes through ultrafiltration and activated carbon. Ultraviolet light cycles through the stored water every 4 to 8 hours to kill anything biological without chlorine. and what comes out the far end goes to an external tank that feeds the house through ordinary plumbing. The result is water that never touched groundwater, never sat in a lead pipe, and never lived in a plastic bottle. And because of that, it's exceptionally pure. 3 independent labs tested it in Austin during 2025. Total dissolved solids came back at 4.5 milligrams per liter. Ordinary municipal tap water runs 200 to 400, so this machine makes cleaner water than almost anything coming out of a pipe in America. And regardless of what your water needs are, chances are Aquaria has a machine that will fit them. Right now, 3 HydroPack sizes exist. The small one makes about 66 gallons a day, the middle one about 132, and the largest, the HydroPack X, about 264. Roughly speaking, the Environmental Protection Agency puts average American household use near 300 gallons a day. So, the big unit is the first one that can genuinely carry a house rather than supplement it. But the big caveat here is that those rated numbers come from a lab bench at 86 degrees and 80% humidity. In the real world, the company publishes what each city actually delivers. Miami runs about 95% of rated output. San Francisco runs about 60%. The huge difference is mostly driven by your local temperature and humidity levels. Below 50 degrees Fahrenheit, the machine stops, not slows, stops automatically and waits. And the reason for that is because cold air is dry air. Air at freezing, completely saturated, at 100% humidity, carries about 5 grams of water per cubic meter. Whereas desert air in Phoenix at 100 degrees and only 20% humidity carries closer to 8. So, somewhat counterintuitively, for an atmospheric water generator, a snowfield in Minnesota is a worse water source than the Sonoran Desert. This turns the seasonal picture into something you can actually plan around. Aquaria states it plainly. A unit doing near rated output through a Houston summer may run at 30 to 40% of rated capacity through a Texas Hill Country winter for 2 to 3 months. This seasonal limitation in many environments is a huge restriction, and one of the main reasons why even the company itself recommends their systems as a supplementary source rather than a primary one. But even if you have the perfect environment, the problems don't exactly stop there. The whole home units are rated at 0.93 kilowatt hours per gallon. Run the middle model at its full 132 gallons, and that is roughly 123 kilowatt hours in a day. The average American home uses about 30 kilowatt hours a day for everything it does. Lights, refrigerator, laundry, air conditioning, all of it. So the water machine on its own draws about 4 times the entire rest of the house. And at the countrywide average of 14 cents a kilowatt hour, that leaves you at roughly 13 cents per gallon of water. Most people will power their HydroPack with their own off-grid power systems, like a solar array. But that's not a simple fix for these power-hungry machines either. Covering 123 kilowatt hours a day in Central Texas sun after real-world system losses takes something on the order of 27 kilowatts of panels. A typical American rooftop array is about 12. So you are looking at 60-odd panels, more than double a full house system to keep your HydroPack running. And that's before forking out on the battery bank that you need to keep the compressor running after dark. Aquaria knows this is a big caveat, and they have attempted to introduce systems to help reduce the burden this huge energy consumption can have. For example, their app will schedule production into the hours your panels are making surplus, which is a genuinely smart feature. But it also means a machine that runs 6 hours instead of 24 makes roughly a quarter of the water. So even at just a quick glance at the costs, it's clear the numbers are heavily skewed in favor of a municipal water supply. Water out of the air costs about 13 cents a gallon. A family of 4 on city water pays somewhere under a cent for the same gallon in most of the country. And published utility rates run from about $3 to $12 per 1,000 gallons, depending on where you live. The point I'm making here is that this is not cheap water, but rather independent water, and those are 2 very different things. So where does a system like this actually have a real demand to fill? The first and strongest use case is as a replacement for a failing or contaminated well. Drilling a replacement in difficult geology runs $40,000 to $100,000, and even then the drill can come up dry. A homeowner in the Texas Hill Country described looking at a $70,000 quote to drill and deciding he would rather put the money into a machine that could not miss. Against a number like that, with no drilling risk attached, the largest unit is simply the cheaper bet. The second is geology you cannot filter your way out of: arsenic, nitrates, and saltwater pushing into coastal aquifers. Reverse osmosis keeps up at drinking water volumes and falls behind fast once you add bathrooms and irrigation, and a machine that never touches the ground sidesteps the problem entirely. The third is fragility. Boil water notices, hurricane weeks, winter storm weeks, 100-year-old water mains. This is a Generac for water, and people who already own the generator understand the logic without being sold on it. The fourth is the household that has already built the energy half. Solar on the roof, batteries in the garage, and export credits that no longer pay much. Turning surplus generation into stored drinking water is the last piece of that stack, and it is the one case where the electricity bill largely stops being the argument. Outside those four, the physics still works, but the economics does not. If your city water is cheap and reliable, then investing in a carbon filter under the sink is the best way to get the benefit of purer water without the big price tag or energy bill. If you enjoyed this video, then I'd appreciate if you could drop a like and subscribe. And if water independence is a topic you enjoy, then you should take a look at the revolutionary device MIT is working on. That video is up next.